All right, let's turn to Michael Graham in the CBS News Washington Bureau. He is the creative director at MediaDC, which publishes the Washington Examiner, the Weekly Standard, and Red Alert Politics. Good to see you, Michael.
Well, I just got back from CPAC, and boy, are my driving arms tired. We just never going to make it out of there. I was going to tell her. Hope she's got a room. Place was packed. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, so you were there. So give me a sense of what it was like. Kellyanne Conway joked that it should be called CPAC, as in T for Trump. Is that what it felt like to you?
I would say VPAC, as in V for victory. I think Ouija's report hit on the key element. When you win, it is so easy to forgive 1,000 failings. It's easy to paper over the disagreements on issues that would normally come up at CPAC, like trade and free markets and small government. Remember, CPAC has traditionally been a place where Ron Paul, the libertarian, used to rock. And then what do you have today? News that the Trump administration is going to crack down on states that have locally legalized marijuana. I mean, the fact is, there are big ideological gaps. CPAC has traditionally been a place where ideology was a core part of the mix. It wasn't just a party, you know what I mean? It wasn't like a convention where I'm here because I'm a Republican, Democrat. There was always a political, young college activist element to it. But what I saw today were people who papered it over. I hate to shamelessly shill something on your show, but I will. We do a podcast every day at Washington Examiner, the first 100 days. And today I handed the podcast over to the folks at CPAC. I got 25 people stuck in a line and just went right through. How do you think Trump is doing? And again, two messages came out. One is, we are amazed that he's doing what he said he would do. You know, the immigration executive order, the rollout was botched. There's a lot of a debate, but they loved it. He said he was going to do something with immigration, and look, he's doing it. And then the second thing I heard again and again was, give the guy a chance. You know, sometimes we in the media, and I definitely am guilty of this, we forget it's been a month. You know, I mean, we're in the media. You add media plus Trump, and now you're in like that movie Interstellar, where years go by in minutes and stuff. And so we've lost perspective that for the people who are out going to work every day and who, just follow politics from a distance, he's been in office a month. Give him a chance was the message I heard at CPAC today.
Michael, let me ask you the question that I asked Ouija about the appearance of Steve Bannon and Reince Priebus on the same stage. Clearly, Steve Bannon doesn't give a lot of interviews, or you rarely hear from him. How exciting was it for the crowd?
Well, it was interesting to me that Steve Bannon, usually in the past, the celebrity is someone like running for president. It's the Cruzes and the Rubios. And here's Steve Bannon is the guy. But like you said, no one's ever seen him. They were curious. They wanted to see the body language between Priebus and Bannon. And I got to tell you, when it was over, the group I was with, we were all talking about, okay, so Priebus is definitely the Tony Randall character in The Odd Couple, and Bannon is Jack Klugman. Are they going to move into we want to see it.
We may be a little too old for that reference there.
I want reality TV to move in. They say they spend all day together anyway, 6:30 a.m. to 11. I say get out The Odd Couple and let's make TV out of it.
Well, let's play some sound from the two of them talking and addressing the conference.
The biggest misconception is everything that you're reading.
We're different, but we're very similar, is that I think that he is very dogged in making sure that every day the promises that President Trump has made, and Steve is very consistent and very loyal to the agenda and is a presence that I think is very important to have in the White House. And I consider him, and secondly, and a very dear friend, and someone that I work with every second of the day, and actually I cherish his friendship.
So there you saw both of them sort of addressing what's been out there in some media reports, Michael, that they don't get along, that they're both competing for the president's ear. At least in that appearance, they seem to be, as Ouija pointed out, in the midst of a bromance.
I don't know anybody here in D.C. who covers the White House regularly who believes that. They don't necessarily believe that they're at each other's throats or that it's divided. But think about it. They just have fundamentally different approaches. When Bannon talks about a globalist corporatist cabal, that runs the media and that we've got to have this, this civilizational struggle, Reince Priebus is like a Wisconsin guy who worked in the Republican Party. He's thinking about how do I get Mrs. Schmeckeldeckel to donate the $100,000 and not get mad that Mrs. Winglebingle is at the wrong table. He comes from that very political, very pragmatic world. They clearly have different worldviews. Doesn't mean that they hate each other or can't get along, but there's definitely two different visions that work simultaneously. And right now, Trump is bringing them together. But I think let's get back to the V word, victory. The question is, can President Trump hold the CPAC-style coalition together if things don't go well, if there's a setback that affects his base, if, for example, they don't overturn Obamacare, if he has to come out and say, yeah, it's not going to happen, will that coalition stick with him? If his poll numbers continue to sag and they get dangerously low, will they stay together, or does he need wins to keep this coalition together? That's my question. Michael,
I want to ask you something that touches upon the comment you just made about bringing two perhaps different opposing views together. I want to ask you about a comment specifically the president made earlier about his immigration memo. I'm going to play some sound and then get your reaction out of it.
You see what's happening at the border. All of a sudden, for the first time, we're getting gang members out. We're getting drug lords out. We're getting really bad dudes out of this country, and at a rate that nobody's ever seen before. And they're the bad ones. And it's a military operation because what has been allowed to come into our country, when you see gang violence that you've read about like never before and all of the things, much of that is people that are here illegally. And they're rough and they're tough, but they're not tough like our people. So we're getting them out.
All right, Michael. So Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly later said very forcefully immigration enforcement was not a military operation. Press Secretary Sean Spicer walked those comments back. He said the president was using it in the form of an adjective, but it seems to be a recurring theme here. The president says something and his surrogates or members of the cabinet have to walk them back, or they have to go to our allies and say, look, the president may have said this, but this is actually what the United States is intending on doing. Does that undermine the president at all?
I think people are going to get tired of it. I know that I spend a fair bit of my time with the content I help create, basically Trump-splaining to the world what it is that we think he meant or what his allies say he meant. I mean, someone's going to write a screenplay, The Trump Whisperer. This is going to be a major Hollywood film, and it's off-putting and it's tiring and it takes energy away. It's interesting. The immigration issue was brought up again and again at CPAC because they've been talking about immigration at CPAC for 15, 20 years. This is not new for them. And when Trump misstates a common sense goal, it means more work for supporters. And they've got plenty of work to do, with the messes, the media fires that Trump sets already.
Right. Look, I think it's fair that most people will say one of the things that they love about President Trump is the fact that he's sort of plain spoken. He doesn't sound like a lawyer. He doesn't, read off. His thoughts are not in that lawyer speak that a lot of politicians are associated with. But I was thinking, when I heard that comment, my first thought was, well, he is the president of the United States, and these words are going to be translated into other languages. They're not going to understand what Sean Spicer said to the American media, that the president's using that term to indicate precision. He's using it as an adjective. That word is going, or that phrase is going to go into the newspapers of the countries that we're allied with and those of our enemies and say, look, the president is using the military to combat immigration.
And there are plenty of Trump supporters who would say, good, scare these people. Clearly they haven't respected America's border. They've, under the Obama years, they literally walked across the border and said, arrest me so I can stay. There have been other issues. But I just want to say one thing. I agree with your point about the foreign media. But it is a little distressing in the domestic media where people know where Trump is trying to go, where they know that his language is less than precise. Sometimes I feel like fights are invented, conflicts are invented. I promise you, everybody in the mainstream media out there, you don't have to invent fights with Trump. He'll pick plenty of his own. You don't have to push him over. He'll fall down.
True. That's absolutely true.
He's a weeble. He wobbles, but he doesn't fall. He's going to keep wobbling.
All right, let's turn to another topic, the topic of health care. That's another focus, obviously, at CPAC. Here's what former House Speaker John Boehner said Thursday about the prospects of repeal and replace.
All this happy talk that went on in November and December and January about repeal. Yeah, we'll do replace. I started laughing because if you pass repeal without replace, you'll never pass replace because they will never, ever agree on what the bill should be. I shouldn't have called it repeal and replace because that's not what's going to happen. They're basically going to fix the flaws and put a more conservative box around it.
All right, so Boehner's got nothing to lose, basically saying not going to happen. Do you think he's right?
Well, I mean, I think as so many often is the case, it kind of comes to semantics. It's like, what is an American-made car? You've got a car factory in Michigan, but the parts come from Mexico and Canada and Japan. What is repealed and replaced. I mean, there are parts of Obamacare that people want to keep. An obvious example is if you have a pre-existing condition, you should still be able to get, health insurance. So if the replace keeps that, you could argue, well, it's not a replace, it kept something. And so I think it really is going to be a political determination. If the Republicans pass something that says we are repealing Obamacare, and then they can pass something that is significantly different, particularly if it loses the individual mandate, I think they can stand up and say, yeah, we got rid of the old thing, we have this new thing. Does it have some of the stuff from the old thing? Yeah, but it's mostly a new thing, and it'll come down to a political decision by the public. The other big political decision by the public is, how is it working? And one of the smart things that Vice President Pence did today, and that I predict President Trump will do tomorrow, is remind people of how awful Obamacare has been for real people. A tiny number of people, quote, benefited because they got shoved on the Medicaid. Well, that's nice, but many, many more people suffered by losing plans they liked, by having their premiums explode, by having deductibles that make basically their insurance not usable. And if Republicans keep reminding people that why you want to get rid of Obamacare in the first place, that will help them get the energy they need to do something new.
All right, Michael Graham. So are you going back tomorrow?
Oh, how do you miss CPAC? It's the place to be. Absolutely. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
All right. We'll hopefully talk to you then. Michael Graham in Washington, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.